Hi, and welcome to Strap a Watch. I'm Michael Knapp with Knapp Leather. Today's episode's going to be a little bit different. 2 days ago, I received a rush order request on what has been probably the most popular leather item I've ever made since being in leather crafting since the late 1980s. And that's on my full grain leather passport wallets. I just finished them, and you're going to get to see me hand make step by step how I do this with these full grain leather passport wallets. And what I'm also going to do is talk about watches and traveling. My wife Linda and I, we just got back a couple months ago from a Scandinavian cruise. No glitches during that vacation, but I'm going to share some horror stories of things that have happened to me in the past and some of the do's and don'ts that I've learned about watches while traveling and what I kind of do today that seems to be working well. So stick around. After the intro, we're going to get right into it. That came in, I was talking about for the passport wallets, that rush order. And here I am getting out the leather. This is where I keep a lot of my leather. It's pretty neat. This was just a little foot seat that was in our house, and I put some wheels on it to be able to store underneath the workbench right there. So this is a piece of 4.5 to 5 ounce vegetable tan leather, and it makes the covers for the passport wallets. And you'll see me, this is a custom template that I had received for these passport wallets, and you'll then also see me cutting out the leather as well as scratching and cutting out the inside pieces as well. So about getting into traveling with watches, and I told you I had a couple horror stories. And the first one that really comes to mind first was back in 2003. I used to be a professional golf caddy, and I caddied at clubs all over the country, some real high-end golf clubs. But I actually was fortunate enough to caddy in the U.S. Open that year. Was in Chicago. And at that time, I did not wear, I had a Rolex GMT that I bought brand new in 1986. I'll never forget it. I paid $1,625 brand new from an authorized dealer in 1986. And this watch meant a lot to me. It was on a milestone in my life. And anyways, I used to wear that mainly in the evenings, and I wore a G-Shock during the day, especially when I caddied. You're working outside, you're getting hot and sweaty all day. So anyways, I had driven up, I lived in St. Simon's Island, Georgia, near Sea Island, Georgia at the time. And I drove up to Chicago to caddy, and when I was the course, when I got to my car, it was a typical smash and grab job. The passenger window was smashed in, and I had the watch, my Rolex, in a center console, and it was gone. And I was devastated. A couple years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, my wife and I were on a vacation. I'm from a little town called Grand Haven, Michigan. It's right on Lake Michigan. It's a really neat little beach town. And we go up there quite a bit in the summertime, go to the beach and just get away, because we live in Northeast Florida now, and it gets real hot down here. We usually take vacations in July. Well, like I said, 4 or 5 years ago, I think it was, I had a Tudor Black Bay, the Heritage Tudor Black Bay with the black dial, black bezel. It was a really cool watch. And dummy me, I left it in the room because I had hidden it. I didn't want to wear it one day out, and I had hidden it. And the last day we were there, I forgot to grab it. Well, we were only gone maybe 5 minutes, and I realized I didn't have the watch, and we turned back around, and I knew exactly where I had hidden it. And lo and behold, housekeeping was already in there. And I remember I confronted the lady, the housekeeper, cleaning the room. You know, did you find a watch? It was right here. And of course she said no. So it's my word against hers. I even went down, I talked with the manager, and needless to say, I never got the watch back. So I stopped traveling with some of my nicer watches on vacations. This is me casing the leather. If you saw last week's video, how I cased the leather for putting in my logo, and this is dampening it with distilled water prior to doing any embossing. So that's what this step is all about. But anyways, you know, I confronted the manager. I talked to him. He confronted the housekeeper. Of course, she kept denying it, and there was just nothing he could do. So nowadays, like I said, I don't travel on vacation with nice watches. I usually will bring, honestly, just a regular quartz watch. I have in my collection, and I talked about it in a prior episode, a Citizen Echo Drive. That's kind of a more dress watch, and it was around $150 for the watch. So if anything happened, $150, but that's not the price of a Rolex or a Tudor or, one of my Grand Seiko I have. I wouldn't do that on vacation. But, to each their own. Everybody has their own thing. And, if I'm traveling to a conference, or, a professional setting, let's say, okay, like a powerhouse meeting or something like that. Yeah, I'll wear one of my nicer watches, my Omega, my Rolex, or my Grand Seiko, even if it's out of town, out of state, or out of country. But I'll tell you what I do is I wear it there. I wear it on the airplane. I wear it the whole time I'm there, except maybe I don't wear a watch when I'm sleeping. I know some guys do. I don't. And I mean, sometimes I'll fall asleep in my recliner with it on. But when I actually go to bed, I always take my watch off and leave it on my dresser. And then in the morning, I decide which watch to wear that day with what attire. So, it's just some of the things I've learned. Honestly, like when we do long distance flights, say, we just went to Europe, and most of the flights from the United States to Europe are in the evening, are all-nighters. And then coming back, they're during the day. It's just the way they set it up. And I'll tell you what, this time I brought a Timex with an Indiglo. I love that Indiglo. That way, it's dark on the plane. I mean, it's really dark. They turn off all the lights. It's nighttime. You're on a 10-hour flight or what have you, and you want to see what time it is. Instead of busting out your phone and, causing all that light to come out of your phone, you just hit the little crown on a Timex and with the Indiglo, and it glows, and you can know what time it is. And, the other thing is like, GMTs. I love GMTs, and I've got 2 GMTs right now. And, one of them's my Christopher Ward, which is, it's not a full luxury watch. I think I paid right around $1,000 for that watch. So it's not cheap, but it's, not the Rolex prices. Let's just put it that way. And yeah, I'll wear that as well on traveling at times, so it's nice because that way, you can track different time zones. So this is a really cool little box I found. I think I bought it on Amazon years ago, and it stores all of my little brass letters that I have for embossing. So you saw where I embossed the word passport into the cover. Well, this gentleman also, this is a present for his son and daughter-in-law, who are leaving actually tomorrow out of country and needed these passport wallets. That's why it was a rush order. And he ordered them to have their initials embossed. So you're seeing me put them in the setter, the letter setter it's called. And I'll even use two little, because I just learned kind of the hard. when I first started doing this, the lettering of the initials were too close together. So I put these little bitty spacers in between. So if you've ever done anything like this, other leather crafters out there, and you notice your lettering is just too close, you can, get some thin piece of metal, make some strips out of it, and create some more spacing between those letters, the actual letters. And you'll see what that comes out like in the final product, because I'm getting ready to emboss that. So, back to about watches and travel, and like I said, to each their own. And everything's relative, because, somebody, a $20,000 watch is super expensive, and to other people, a $20,000 watch is, really not that expensive. Everybody's different. So, I'm going off with what my budget is and what I've learned in my travels. And I'm not a watch snob, so no, I don't, care if somebody sees me out and about wearing a Timex watch. I don't, I know some guys that actually do. But again, what Strap a Watch is all about is promoting the wearing of watches, and especially mechanical watches, and that means also automatic. I think a lot of people, they think when you're talking automatic watch, they're thinking a watch that has a battery in it. That's not what I'm talking about. That's a typical quartz watch. And also you have today watches that are smart watches, that are rechargeable watches. But the difference with an automatic is a mechanical movement. It's self-winding. There's a rotor that's in the movement itself, that as you move your body and you move your arm, your wrist, it is actually winding the watch up as you move. That's what an automatic movement is. So it's a mechanical watch. They are best to keep wound. So, and I went into about power reserves on my last episode, talking about I get about 36 hours power reserve on my one Christopher Ward watch that has a Salida movement in it, as opposed to the comparable ETA movement, and getting a 42, they say, but I actually get 44 out of that movement, and that's in hours. If you were not to wear it and it was fully wound and you just laid it down, that's how many hours of power that it would keep ticking. So, like my Grand Seiko is pretty cool. I haven't timed that one out because it's rated at 72 hours. And there's some that'll go, days and days. 72 hours, that's 3 days straight. This is where you're seeing me applying Toconol, and you also saw me putting some tape down along the edges, and that's because that's where some of the inner pieces are going to be glued. And instead of having to go back and apply Toconol all over and go back and get some of that Toconol off where I'm going to glue, because otherwise the glue wouldn't stick and hold. And you'll see me doing it. There's a little scratch tool that we use to be able to remove the surfaces, some surfaces like dye. You'll see me doing that here pretty soon. But now you can see, if you're a leather crafter, check this out. All of that area that I'm going to end up being glued is perfect and ready to be glued. So now you're seeing me airbrush. The gentleman ordered these in two different colors. One's a saddle tan and one's in a green. So you're going to see me, and this is just the first coat. I actually put 3 coats on each one, and they turned out beautiful. So this is how I do it. I made this little box, and I've got a fan. You can see it kind of off to the right. You saw it better on the other shot, but you can barely see it to the right. That's blowing the air out. I have my air conditioner on my shop on full, and I'm wearing a little respirator type mask so that the fumes don't get to me, because man, it can get pretty fumy. I think I actually had the door open here as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure I had the door open because it wasn't too hot outside that day. So you can see that's just one coat on each of the items, but I did 3 coats on each, 3 coats. So this is that scratch tool I was talking about. So you're seeing me scratch off where I had applied the dye, because if I glued that and tried to adhere, it would fail. It would not stick. So you've got to get back to the fibrous tissue of the leather, because that is the skin side as well. You'd be doing this anyways, even if you didn't dye. You would want to scratch off that surface. And there I am. I just dyed it. And now I'm hammering it down a little bit, tamping it down so that it really adheres well. And we'll let that dry. So this is right here. There's a stitch that goes between, because that top part creates 2 card pockets for, credit card size cards. And that way you can keep your ID and stuff and business cards with you while you travel. And so now you can see where I'm applying the glue is where I had that tape. So it just works out fantastic. And I applied Tokonol to each piece on the inside. I explained that in a prior video. I do that on just about all of my products because it not only helps preserve the leather, but it makes it really nice in appearance, but it makes it also slick. So a passport wallet, you're needing to slide things in and out. Your cards, like I was just talking about. There's a pocket underneath those card slots for like your itinerary or cash or other papers and documents you might want to bring. So that's that pocket right there I'm talking about. So that's the first pocket that goes down, and then the other pocket. And you can see I'm marking where I need to scratch for where I'm going to glue. So that is the actual pocket that you can put paperwork in. And then the other side is a pocket where the back cover of the passport fits. And so you want those kind of slick, because most of the time, those of you that travel and know, you have to present your full passport. They won't accept it when it's in the actual passport wallet. And some people call them passport covers. I've always called them passport wallets. But so that way you can just slick it out, pull it out real quick, give it to a TSA agent or customs agent, what have you, and then you're good to go, and put it back in real easily rather than messing around having to try to pull it out. And it's really difficult. And I've done that. Without the Tokonol, it's hard. That's why I started using it. And I'll tell you, a lot of other leather crafters, they don't do this. They don't do it. So if you're a leather crafter, you're not using some type of burnishing product like Tokonol or some other, burnishing products, start using them, on your flesh side. So here I am pricking the stitching holes. So you can see that there. I've always had a hard time trying to film this, so I'm looking at a different angle this time, but still you can see my hand gets in the way of everything. It's just difficult to film this. It really is. But that's a 4mm pricking iron, and I'm using a 6 and a 2 pricking irons right there. So the 2s are for around the corners, and then the 6s are just going on my straight lines. So here I am. I'm saddle stitching. I talked about that last week as well, how you use one long piece of thread and 2 needles, one on each end, and you're going in from one side and then the other, and then you pull taut, and there's kind of a style to this. It's really kind of difficult. Right here you're seeing me just starting the whole wallet. So I'm probably in my first inch, maybe inch and a quarter of stitching, and I have to go all the way around that perimeter, which is meaning that piece of thread is very long right now, and you can see I'm having to really work to pull everything all the way through. By the time you get down to the end, you just have a little bit inches that you're dealing with, because if you measure it right, and I have a system And I'll share that in a future video. There's a system I use for any of you leather crafters of what I do that seems to work very well of getting the exact right amount of thread, because that is always a difficult thing. You never want to not have enough. I remember years ago when I was really starting out, I used to run out all the time. And right there, I just was tamping down and letting the stitching relax. We always do that. After you get done stitching, you just want to tamp it down. And here I am beveling the edges. As you can see, that's actually I can't remember the exact size, to be honest, of a bevel, but it's kind of a medium-sized bevel, because with these passport wallets, you want them pretty well rounded off, because, you know, you're putting them in maybe a sport coat jacket, you're putting them in maybe a piece of your luggage that's accessible, that you can get out in and out real easily, and you don't want any squared edges. So now you're seeing me sand the edges, especially you're doing the corners, and a little bit down on the flats, and just getting everything nice and even. And then this is where I'm going to actually to burn the edges off, because when you do the sanding, it gets real fuzzy, and so you want to actually burn that off. Sometimes I'll use a lighter on a smaller object, but then, you know, if you're going kind of long on a lighter, it gets really hot. So I learned by just using one of these kind of burners, it works great. So I use this actually quite a bit. And I do have an electric edger that heats up, and sometimes I'll use that as well. I use that a lot on my leather straps for my watch straps. And here I'm applying edge coat, you can see. So, and I've learned, you know, always wear gloves doing stuff like this, applying dye, applying edge coat, applying glue. Sometimes I'll just say, I don't need to do it, and I always get this stuff all over my hands, and then it's on there for days. So this is me taking a bone tool and just busting out near the stitching where any glue might still be holding the piece together. You want to bust that out so that it's all, you know, nice and nothing's still sticking that shouldn't be sticking. And as you saw, that's called Resolene. It's an acrylic sealer. It's just really awesome stuff. And I basically, as you can see, I'm drowning the item in it. And I especially am trying to get into the stitching holes, and I get it all over these wallets. I really do, front, back, and really get it, because it's there to help protect the leather in the long run. It's going to make it, you know, pretty water resistant. Leather's definitely not waterproof, but it's going to help really preserve the leather very, very well. And I use this on a lot of different products that are with vegetable tan leather. You don't use this on chrome tan leather. It's just, you know, it's mainly for vegetable tan leather. And here I'm just putting a little kind of a decorative mark down where those edges are that are kind of rounded inside. So, and we're getting close. You can see, I mean, a couple more steps is really burnishing. So I'm putting some of this is beeswax and getting ready to burnish the edge. So, and then just going through and slicking it. And I know I've used a lot of speed up on some of these parts. Otherwise, this would have been probably a 3-hour video, and you wouldn't want that. So some of these clips I sped up. This one I didn't speed up because this is the actual final product. You can see that's my wife's passport wallet. And I went into our safe to go grab our wallets, and hers was on top, so I just grabbed hers. Because I always take one of our passport wallets just to make sure everything's fitting well. And you can see that's my business card. Actually, these are my new business cards because I got Strap-A-Watch on the back end. And I always put another, just a generic card in there to help break it in. But you can see how beautiful that green one turned. That's the first time I ever made one in green. I've had a lot of requests for a lot of different colors, but never had one in green. A lot of blue. By far the most popular is saddle tan. So that's my wife's. I tell you, that was tough getting that in that pink color. She chose the color, and that's what she wanted. So that's what she got. My wife's kind of a pink type girl. So you can see I have her passport. I started to stick this in and realized, I didn't get to the very back cover. I still had a page in the way. So how quick it just slid right in. Close it up, and it's perfect. Man, look at that. That's how your passport goes into your wallet. And though you got a TSA agent. It's brand new, so it's a little bit tight, but it'll get worked in. And you just pull it out. So we always test each one. And it's now going inside here. Yeah, it works perfectly. Well, I'll tell you what, I thank you guys so much for joining me on Strap a Watch. And, I'm just starting off with this channel and still building this channel. That's what it's all about. I have one gentleman that I really appreciate. His name's Dan. And he's looking like he's going to be a diehard subscriber. So I really, I appreciate that, Dan. And I hope I get hundreds and then thousands more just like you, where we're all, becoming a community to really help promote watches. So, again, God bless you guys. And I'm going to see y'all here real soon. Thanks a lot. And until next time, keep on ticking.